And we are back, South Florida. Welcome, one sunny day here in South Florida, and we have got such a great guest with us. I've got a surprise. I didn't tell him this. I've got a surprise. We got a call after his last show. Let me introduce you to Attorney Andrew Rosenberg. Good morning, Attorney.
Good morning, Steve-O. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I got to tell you, I wanted to wait for the show.
Uh-oh.
We you never know who's listening to the show. We had a senior partner of a local law firm contacted us who found your show by accident. And he said, I actually sat and listened to the whole show, hoping I could find something wrong with what he said. And I got to tell you, you've got a really, his words, you've got a super expert. And I thought that was so nice because Andrew, usually when people call and they want to do a show with us, they cut down whoever the expert is and tell you they're better. But that was really nice. I thought him calling up and saying how great your show was.
Yeah, that's that. I really appreciate it. Tell the gentleman or woman, whoever it was, that I really appreciate
Gentlemen.
those words. It means a lot, actually, because I really try to make sure that what I say is accurate as best as I can, and that it helps clients and people out there in the public so they understand this crazy world that we call estate planning and elder law.
Well, Andrew, I really feel I've been doing this for 15 years and we have estate planning shows all over the country. I got to tell you, when an attorney decides he wants to practice law and estate planning, and like yours, that's basically all the area you cover. Um, you've really got to have a heart for people. It's to me, the only area of law that you really need to care about people, and you do.
Yeah. I would agree with you. It's you got to have patience and you got to like people. I mean, I've always liked dealing with people and dealing with people that tended to be older. I always like to hear their wisdom, how they made a living, what their what their life story is. It's always interesting to me, and that's kind of between that background and then I may have been a doctor when I grew up, Steve-O, but unfortunately I had to deal with cancer in our household growing up. My youngest sister got diagnosed with a brain tumor when she was 9, and
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I was 11, and so for 10 years she lived with it until she passed away at 19. And so I may have been a doctor because I really liked that side of the thing, but it was seeing the whole mess of what happened through the 10 years and then seeing my parents dealing with all the legal things associated with my sister, may she rest in peace, my sister, and all the things that happened kind of got me towards going into law and estate planning. It's just I never thought I would do this, but I love it. I love dealing with people. I love talking, doing workshops, all that kind of stuff. And I ended up being, as I always like to say, I ended up being the only shyster attorney in my side of the entire family. Everyone else is in
I,
medicine.
I hear you. What's so sad is the other day in Green Acres, two older people were pedestrians were hit by a car, passed away, and gosh, my mind always goes, did they settle their estate? Because we never know when we're going to pass. I mean, gosh, we see people 30, 40 years old passing away, and one of the biggest purposes of this show is people, even if it's just a will or a trust, need to come sit down with you. And that thing, estate planning, does not mean you have to be a multimillionaire.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually, in my workshops, one of the questions I ask is at the beginning, I have a slide and I say, who needs estate planning? And my answer to that is everybody. I mean, everybody needs estate planning. If you're you got a kid going off to college, okay, you need estate planning for the kid. because they're technically adults at 18 years of age in the state of Florida. And if something happens to them and then they're in the hospital and they're unable to communicate, you're going to have a hard time talking to these doctors because they're adults without the proper legal documentations of a healthcare surrogate or whatever it might be. Same thing with financial affairs for kids that are 18. And they usually don't have any money, the 18-year-old kids, right? And then you got kids that, get married. I just was at a wedding last night. It was a wonderful wedding. And, they're young. They're just starting out. And, they need to have estate planning put into place. They don't really probably have much in assets, but they need to really take care of themselves so that they can deal with, if God forbid there's healthcare crises or there's financial concerns, they need to have documents in place. They're up in New York, but they need to do it up in the New York area with an attorney up there. So it's a great point. Is that people think that you have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars for estate planning, and that's far from the truth. Everybody, everybody needs estate planning, and that's what people don't understand. And again, regarding that horrible situation that you mentioned, as far as those people in that tragedy up in Green Acres, I think you said. Um, I actually in my workshop when I was visiting. Here's a story. When I was visiting my son and I went to go to Duke Law School, my son was lucky enough to get into Duke Law School this past year, and we were trying to make final decisions. And we were visiting up in April of last year to visit the school and everything. And the USA Today came on my hotel doorstep, and one of the pages was an article that says estate planning is in decline and on a national level. And I've
Wow.
been doing this for over 30 years. And unfortunately, Steve-O, people, estate planning, people think they're going to live forever and they just don't think that things are going to happen to them. And then you're left with your pants down. And the family's in a lot of problems, and it causes all sorts of headaches and issues and everything else that you just don't want to have happen. And it's kind of shocking that I saw that article and I put it in my workshop now, and I tell him, I said, "There's only one time, Steve. Guess what time estate planning went nuts for me? Went crazy. People are in decline. People just don't do it because they don't want to think about mortality until something happens to them. But when do you think my estate planning went nuts? And
Don't know.
COVID.
Oh, yes, yes.
When COVID hit, it
Oh,
was
that's right.
because that's the one time where there was a huge spike in the estate planning for me because I was getting calls all over the place saying, "Hey Andy, I need to do my estate plan in case I catch COVID. I don't want to die and not have things in place." And it was
Right.
nuts. We were doing it was crazy. There was no one. You were staying away from each other. You had to wear masks, and no one was seeing each other. People were working from home. I got kicked off the island from my house. I was home with my wife and my two college kids, and they said I talked too loud, and they said we can't have you at home with the kids and my wife working and my dog. They said it's too much, so I got kicked off the island. I had to come to my office by myself every day, which was great, by the way. But I would be doing these estate plans, and I would have to go out with a mask on outside, and the clients would be sitting in the cars. They'd roll down their windows. I'd have them go over the documents. They'd sign the documents in the 95-degree heat, and I'm sweating like you can't believe outside. And then my witnesses would be looking out the window from the waiting room, and then I'd have to bring everything in, have the witnesses sign, and so that the clients could see from their car them signing, and then I had to scan everything in. It was crazy, but the point is that people just that's another example of when people weren't planning, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, this is a horrible situation. Well, let's plan. The airline wrecks we've seen, people I'm sure we're not organized, and we're not luckily a lot of people, everyone survived in that Toronto one recently, but are they ready? Were they ready for things to happen? And that's what I try and preach is, are you going to be ready when the SOL hits the fan? are you going to be able to sleep at night knowing that you've done everything you can financially, but also estate planning wise?
Anybody, it's been a while ago, Andy, that if you follow the Terry Shively case, there's a reason why you've got to take care of your business. Because look what
Yeah.
happened to that family.
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, we can go down the list, Steve. You could say Prince. There's an example.
Yes, not having a will.
Yeah, we could say who's another one I could think of. How about the family? I'm drawing on that owned the Dolphins. Um, what I can't.
Yes, I heard that's right.
I
I don't
can't.
remember the name, but yes, I
Exactly.
heard
I
he
can't
did.
think of the name of the last name of the Dolphin ownership group. But they didn't plan for taxes back then, and they were forced to sell
Right.
for the taxes. They had to sell the team. They didn't want to sell the team. Here's another example. I wonder what about Gene Hackman? God, may he rest in peace. Whether he had his affairs in order, we'll find out over the next couple months,
Yes.
probably. Hopefully, if you don't hear anything, that means he had everything in order. But just because you're famous doesn't mean that you got things lined up properly. And trust me, everybody out there, you don't need to be famous to have things set up properly.
It's so important and you've got a workshop tomorrow. What is
I
your
do
workshop
actually.
on?
Yeah, yeah. I was asked to speak up in Delray. So yeah, we have a workshop tomorrow at Abbey Delray South at 2:30 in the afternoon. So if anyone wants to attend that, they need to contact the office and let us know because it's getting pretty full up there. So we want to make sure there's space for you. But yeah, I got one tomorrow. Believe it or not.
Uh, you know, we just got a question in from Albert in Delray Beach. I think it's a great question. He wants to know what is the difference between estate planning and elder law?
That's a great question.
That
Uh,
is a good question.
it's a great question, actually. I mean, I think people will have different answers to that question if you speak to different attorneys. But my definition of the difference between estate planning and elder law planning is estate planning is planning for the unexpected scenario or expected scenario when we do pass away and all the other things that happen during our lifetime. And so it's the wills, it's the durable powers. If a lot of people don't realize this that and everyone thinks about death, when they're thinking about estate planning. But estate planning also has to deal with not death, but when you become disabled or incapacitated. So estate planning is dealing with death, but also dealing with incapacity and dealing with the financial affairs of incapacity and the healthcare decision making for incapacity. So estate planning, in my opinion, is dealing with like wills and trusts and durable powers and healthcare surrogates and living wills and the DNRs and all those kinds of things is estate planning. And you could be 18 years old all the way up to 100 years old or whatever to do estate planning. I think, and other people may disagree, but I think elder law planning has to do more with planning for Medicaid purposes. At least that's how I define it when I say elder law planning. It's planning for the situation where you might have to go into a nursing home or need
Long
assisted
term care.
living, long-term care, or assisted living, or home health care. All three of those.
Yes.
And so the question becomes in the elder care arena, are you organized legally and set up properly for elder care purposes? And what do I mean by that? I mean, listen, we all pay every paycheck, we all pay money towards Medicaid, okay, taxes. Tax money goes towards Medicaid, Medicare, Medicaid, all that good stuff. So you may reach a point where you need to go into a long-term care facility or something like that. And the question is, how are you going to pay for that? And what happens is there's three ways that you can pay for Medicaid, okay, or long-term care if you're in a Medicaid facility. The first way is if you have long-term care insurance. which is obviously the best way. And most people do not have that. It's very expensive. It's really important, but it's really expensive. And the problem that I've seen over the past 20, 30 years with long-term care insurance, as you know, there's car insurance, there's homeowners insurance, flood insurance, all that. There's also insurance for long-term care purposes. The problem that we've seen as the attorneys in the field is that the long-term care insurance premiums that everyone has been paying keep getting jacked up every other year, and it gets to a point where the people can't afford it anymore. So they've come up with a new product fairly recently over the past several years or so, where these insurance policies come out, right? And they put a long-term care rider on it, and then by doing that, you still get the same benefits for the most part, but their premiums stay flat, so you don't have these huge
Ah,
spikes. So getting back to my thing is, how do you pay for this stuff? The first and best way is if you have long-term care insurance. The second way is if you don't have long-term care insurance, guess what's going to be used to pay? Your income and your assets. Until your income and your assets are dwindled to next to nothing. And then the third way that gets paid is Medicaid. You qualify for Medicaid. So the question is, elder care or elder law is, what happens if we have income and we have assets and we're above the Medicaid thresholds? We won't qualify, but we want to try and qualify legally to get there. How can we do that legally? What are the rules and how can we legally set things up? And that's where elder care especially comes in, and that's what we do as well. So if there's a big distinction, in my opinion, between elder care and estate planning. Again, estate planning is your wills, trusts, and all the things that we need to do for your daily lives. And then if you feel like or you're concerned about elder care, that's where you're concerned about getting older and you're concerned about getting Alzheimer's or having physical problems, and you need to qualify for nursing home care or long-term care or assisted living care. How do we protect our assets for that situation? I hope that bifurcation makes.
yes. I want to get, we've got 3 or 4 texts right now. Um, Andrew, I'm really enjoying your show. What do you like better, wills or a trust?
um, I like both, but
Okay.
what people don't know, Steve-O, and it's I've been doing this for a long time. People don't understand that a will guarantees probate court. So people think that if they
Oh,
pass away, they think it's the movies, Steve-O. It's like the movies, okay? You remember you've seen movies where like someone passes away and they show the scene in the movie where you're at the attorney, you're in a big, beautiful conference room, expensive conference room. The attorney's there, and you got all the beneficiaries there, and the attorney starts reading the will, and then the credits roll in the end of the movie, right? But that's not how it works in real life. What happens is if you have a will, you're guaranteeing probate court, and and I don't like that. I make a good
no,
living.
that's expensive.
It's very expensive. It's time consuming. It's public record. There's a lot of things, problems with. I make a very good living with probate. I mean, it has to happen because people are not educated. But what I do is, if possible, I try and plan accordingly, where I can do the estate planning side. You know, the elder care versus the estate planning side, which might include wills, but also other documents, maybe ladybirds, all sorts of other types of things that we can get to in another discussion that will take care of things, and it will be less expensive than doing your estate plan with a trust. So a trust is great. I love trusts, but I also like wills in the right situation. And I do a lot of wills because I can draft everything with all the other estate planning documents to avoid probate court. And we only have the will just in case we forgot something. And hopefully it will never get used. So if you ask me what do I like better, everyone comes in to meet with me and saying, I need trust work. I need trust work. And then my job, I feel my job is to analyze the situation and then say, well, maybe we don't need trust work. Maybe we could do it option A, and it might be less expensive, and we're doing the same thing, versus option B, which is the trust and a little more money. So I like to give them options where it makes sense. But if you ask me what's better, both are good for the right situation. How's that? Typical
Wait a
attorney
minute,
answer.
Andrew. Wait a minute. An attorney trying to save people money? Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why I hope there's a reason why I have 400 plus Google reviews. I try to do the right thing, and hopefully word of mouth, people spread and they like what I do. That's kind of what I try to do. I've been doing that a long time. I'm getting to be an old fart, Steve-O.
Yeah, right. Listen, we are on so many different platforms. Andrew's with us live. A lot of shows out there are not live. We do a live show every other week in for South Florida, and God, I can't believe I've been doing this with this great company, W4CY, for the last 2 years, and I just found out we're also on Pandora too. And I listen to Pandora all the time, but Pandora's got a huge library, which your show is on. Uh, Andrew, tell people how they can reach you.
Sure. A couple different ways. My email is Andrew at rosenberglawfirm.net, and Rosenberg's Rosenberg lawfirm.net. So Andrew at rosenberglawfirm.net. That's the email. My office number is 954-755-7803. And the website is rosenberglawfirm.net. Those are the three ways that they can get a hold of me.
And don't forget about your workshop tomorrow at 2:30.
Yeah. I have two actually coming up. I have one tomorrow in Delray, 2:30 at Abbey Delray South. And then I have another workshop on March 12th at Total Wine in Coral Springs, Florida at 5:30. And those two workshops are going to be on the estate planning essentials and talking about all sorts of stuff regarding estate planning. I have other workshops down the line where I've been asked to speak where we talk about elder care. So there you go.
Well, I got to tell you, your show goes by so fast. You'll be back again with us live in 2 weeks. Andy, thank you so much. We are so blessed to have you.
I feel blessed to be with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good week.
You too.
That's attorney Andrew Rosen. I'm sorry, someone had just called me. Attorney Andrew Rosenberg. He's an estate planning attorney. That's it for us today. We will be back with you next week with more Ask the Experts. Thank you, Rebel.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.